Hi, everybody. Welcome to an archetypal intensive. It's going to be intense. And the influence of your silent psychic partners. I was just going over my notes and I think uh, I could have had 40 pages just for this one class. So I'm going to do my best to not get carried away and stay on target and all of this kind of thing. And hi, I'm going to start with we live in an archetypal universe. And let me just jump right in here. This is a highly organized universe. You see, just observe the laws of nature. And you can see when you observe nature that really nothing is random. Every single thing has its role, has its job, has its purpose. It is an organized universe. And that should be like your first clue that maybe the governing mechanism in life is law. Everything follows laws. The laws of nature, the laws of gravity, the laws of science, everything follows laws. And that's an important part here. Um, Today, I think that the nature of God is law, light, and love. The three elements through which we can kind of sense the nature of the governing forces that organize this system of life. It is very, very organized. So we go from the physical realm to the archetypal realm, to the symbolic, and each realm has its a different lens through which you can understand your life, through which you can understand the world in which we live and we dwell. Now, everything that exists is governed by law. I mean, think about gravity, cause and effect, action and reaction, the laws of balance, the laws of constant motion, and the law as above, so below. As it is down here, so it is up there. As it is up there, so it is down here. All the mystical great teachers have emphasized this. And when we deal with archetypes and trying to understand the archetypal what are archetypes and how does that power influence us and how does it influence collective events, how are collective events created? We need to withdraw our allegiance from our five senses in order to pierce a veil that exists between our non-physical, the physical world, and the non-physical world, the sacred realm. And and to really get the truth that we are agents of co-creation, that we're not here just to have things happen to us, but rather we are participating in the events as they unfold in the energetic nature of the universe. And I really I cannot tell you how deeply I believe this, how deeply it is a part ingrained in me now. And it's come from my history, not my years of studying theology, but my years of being a medical intuitive. That that was my greatest theology class, was medical intuition. The years in which I did that, because I could not get over, as the years went by, how powerful each human being is. I couldn't get over it. I mean, as I tried to help Norm Shealy identify why a person was sick, I started out in the very dense world, just a brief because it fits in here a little bit. And that's that I didn't have any idea of archetypes whatsoever when I started out. Nothing, zero. It was in the 80s and I was new at this. And my whole thing was to be able to identify what was the physical illness somebody had. What was the physical illness? And if possible, what was the emotional underlying cause? So that's a very tiny unit of power in someone. And back then, I looked for one cause because I still was in the mathematics of the ordinary world, of ordinary consciousness, which is for everything that goes wrong, there's one reason. The, it's like the mathematics of ordinary consciousness. But eventually, and this is eventually why I stopped doing readings, eventually, as the years went by, and I thought, it's got nothing to do with this one thing that happened 30 years ago. I, I could sense the impact of an attitude. I could sense the impact of resentment. There's no way to measure it. There's no way to, here, I'm going to put the power of your attitude in a box. You can't do that. There's no way to do that. But that's when I began to realize that the ingredient that governs life, that life is all about, is power. It's our management of our power. It's how we understand power, how we manage it, what power has authority over us, and thus why we have become so obsessed, all of us, at this. It's like the new calling is the call to empowerment, the call toward the inner world of power, so that we can begin to get that life is not about power on the outside coming toward us, but the power on our inside going out. That this is the main event, so to speak. And I saw that more and more as I would do readings, and realized that a person was hemorrhaging from a belief system. A person was hemorrhaging from an inner narrative that maybe something that did happen to them, but the consequence of that was how they drew up their narratives and the power of their beliefs. It was astonishing to me. And then during those years, my own spirituality began to reshape itself. And I realized I couldn't fit into a religion. And then you go into kind of the world of spirituality. But then eventually, you want to go off planet with your beliefs. I mean, you've got to get bigger than that. You don't want an earth-centric God. The universe is so huge. What kind of inner theology can you formulate? Can you possibly comprehend that allows for a galactic size idea of the cosmos and the divine? That's where my own work led me. And as I did that, as I expanded, that's when I began to sense archetypal patterns. This was happening simultaneously. And I thought, what are those? And then my very first reading with Norm Shealy saw patients in his office for pain management. They were always adults. He did not see children. But this one time, he calls me up and he has a reading, and I kept seeing a child. And when I say see, this is what I mean by it. If I told you all right now, I want you to image what's in your living room, and you don't actually see it. You actually don't see it. You get pixels, or you get something, or you get a memory pattern. But it's not a vision like the way you're looking at me now through this video, or the way you see my pen. It's not that. It's an energetic formulation of what you're recalling. And that's what it's like to do a reading. Those images rush through my psychic field. But the key for me, that they had nothing to do with me, is that it was totally impersonal, fast, impersonal images. So I got this image of a child. And I said to Norm, why do you have a child in your office? And he said, I don't. What are you looking at? And I said, it's a child. And he said, well, just keep talking. And as I kind of engaged with that image, I thought, what in the world? And I realized that there was a childlike presence in the person's psychic field. not possession. It was none of that stuff. It was like an influencer. That's a way to think of archetypes actually as influencers, and that was so fascinating to me. That and the recognition of my own inner child, which surprised the heck out of me because I really had no sense whatsoever of this inner child stuff. And it gave me an entirely new perspective. So I grew into the capacity to grasp the symbolic or the energetic nature of the universe. And here it took it took one reading after another to realize how what active agents of creation archetypal patterns are. What incredibly active agents of creation. And then eventually, eventually I thought, what about collective events? What about wars? What about how is it that conflicts arise? How is it that certain people come to power and other people don't? And how is it? What are we participants in that? And that's that as I saw this more clearly and to the best of my ability to communicate with you, I think that our archetypal patterns, our magnets, are like our conscious cosmic magnets that operate in our orbit. And they are filled with stories and mythologies and legends and all kinds of impersonal things, all the hero legends, all of this, the warrior legends, the good witch legends, all of this literature, all of it. It's just like this collective bank account. And if you have a pattern, if you have a certain archetypal pattern, that is your magnet. That's like a magnet that draws you to the books, to the stories, to people you resonate with. It is a magnetic field. And through these archetypal patterns, the laws of the universe of creation operate through you. They help you form your choices. They influence the way you see things. They activate a fantasy. And through that, you then make choices of creation. So for me, God is love, light, and law. That these three aspects of the nature of God organize this incredible universe to operate so that we co-create. We absolutely are participants, and our archetypal patterns are like these silent psychic forces that through which we view something, through which we understand something. And and there's just no way that you can operate outside of your archetypal patterns. And here's something else that, just as an aside, you can't engage an archetypal pattern if it isn't organically in your contract or in your system. Like you can want, for example, we'll go into this more in the next class, but you can want, for example, to maybe be an actress or maybe be a whatever you want to be. Here's an example. I do not have in any way, shape, or form the athlete. I mean, it is so not in my energy. So I can go to a gym, which I have done, and it's like I am convinced everybody sees me and says, "What is she doing in here? What is she doing here?" It looks like a foreign object to me, and it's overwhelming. And no matter what I do and how I do to work out, I never feel good. Everyone else feels great, and I'm looking at them and thinking, I cannot seem to engage athletic energetics. I just don't have it. Even though I sign up for the gym, I do all the things, I show up on time, I get a trainer, nothing. There's no magnetics there. There's nothing. It's totally, that's how an archetype works. It is a magnetic force. It's a silent magnetic force. So we'll get to that, more of that in a minute. I am fascinated, and once you actually get it, and you think, okay, what are my archetypal patterns? What are they? What are they? And how do they participate in the evolution of who I am? Of who I am? And and do we need to attend to all of them? And the answer to that is yes. You gotta know thyself, and your universe. Now I wanted to point out that um, the invisible realm, archetypes are part of the invisible realm. And and a point I want to make is that it's we are constantly manifesting our archetypal patterns in our world, even if we're unaware of it, through our clothes, through our vocabulary, through the things we like, the things we're attracted to, the things we're not attracted to, right? It's just there. But the invisible realm, when we get to that discussion, it's not easy to comprehend for all sorts of reasons. And reason is here our operative word. And it's like I learned in healing. We seek control. We seek order. And we seek the ability to to observe the consequences of our choices. We like that. We want to see the impact we have on the world. We want to see the cause and effect. Our life is designed around that. So it's extremely challenging to try and assess the consequences of a psychic pattern, of having emotional psychic narratives going on inside of you, and possibly thinking that this is a creative force in my life, so I have to deal with this. What makes more sense to us is that we like to think we can control things because we like the substance of the physical world. Maybe I need to buy something that works better. Maybe I need to move. Maybe I need to to do something physical to organize our life. It is a challenge and a leap of consciousness to reach a place where you think, you know what? I think my physical world is the caboose on my train, and the engine is where I need to cast my attention. And the engine is where all my creative forces are, where all my creative possibilities are, where my influencers are. I can't even believe I'm using that word. Okay, so and I think that one of the it takes an effort. It that's not the right word. It takes a choice, a conscious choice, to truly understand the archetypal nature of the universe, to really decide, what if things aren't the way I think they are? What if there are influences? What if I've been participating in some way and I don't even know it? What what if? What if? What if the invisible world, it governs our physical world through laws that are the laws of co-creation, governed by laws that people have identified for centuries through mythologies. The phoenix, for example, it's an accepted archetypal dynamic that people fall into ashes and then rise again. It is death and rebirth. It is that cycle of life. It is, and so stories are written about it and myths are written about it. The hero's journey. Yet another archetypal pattern that's been mythologized, Odysseus, Ulysses, that that somehow when someone has that hero archetype, it gives them the appetite to find their hero's journey one way or another. And you may not articulate, like, you know what, it's time for me to go on a walkabout on a hero's journey. But there is a compelling force in you that's attracted to heroes, that's attracted to the idea of doing something outrageous on your own and then coming back empowered by it so that your life would never, ever, ever be the same. Never be the same. Now, it's been my experience in teaching archetypes and teaching um, into this world, in this world, that it is an obstacle course in itself. And I want to explain that to you. And that's that we feel safer here in the physical world. We like control. We like order. We like the stuff we can touch. And when we start talking about the activity of the non-physical world, the activity of archetypal patterns, the activity of what fills what you think of as empty space, it becomes this kind of sense of, wait a minute, because it threatens control. It really does hit at your control nerve because it says, well, I thought I was in charge, but you're not. But you're not. And this is where it takes a while to scaffold inside of you a understanding of your universe that allows you to put the physical world in its proper place, like the caboose on the train, and decide, I need to enter my energetic world. I need to enter the dynamics of the energetic world in order to understand why things are as they are in my physical world. Now, if we were talking about your health, this would be a simpler matter to explain because we would say, okay, here's your physical situation, but now we have to deal with the energetics. Let's talk about your emotions. Let's talk about your psychological history and what's going on in your psyche. But even that just begins to scratch the surface to it. I have long taught and use a building metaphor because it's the best, most effective way to realize that advancing your consciousness is an effort. It's not just, well, I have this archetype, I have that archetype. It's not. It's not at all. When I do classes like sacred contracts or anything on archetypes, and I ask people, can you identify some of your archetypes? The first thing a person does, the first thing first, is that they tend to look at their habits or what they want to be, or they don't understand the full scope of an archetype. I have so many women that pick queen. And when I ask them why, honestly, their answers vary, but it's some form of, because I don't like to take orders, I like to give orders. Well, is that a queen? Is that a queen archetype? And is an archetype only about physical actions like being bossy in the world, mistaking a queen for a bully, or mistaking for a control freak, when in fact, or in fact, a victim? When in fact, an archetype is a pattern that's so vast and so subtle that you find it in the caverns of your myths, in the caverns of your fantasies, in the quiet of your imaginings. Who you can imagine yourself as, who you can, you know, um, who you are attracted to for reasons that are not reasonable. The archetypal patterns are here's your clue, the more impersonal you can get about yourself, the more you can see clearly.